Hi everyone, time for another video update. And now that we've transitioned from the Sling TSi build phase to the maintenance phase of the aircraft, so now's the fun part. We've been flying quite a lot. Obviously the first flight was in February, but we got the full permit issued in early May after all the flight testing was completed by the end of April. And since then been to many places, tried all the different load scenarios, full forward CFG with full fuel and 2 up front, and with the rear passengers at the max takeoff weight as well, and got used to the handling characteristics, especially the trim setting. That's the key one. At different load conditions, the trim is quite different, the neutral position of the trim. She's been very economical so far. Typical cruise at 75% power, you're seeing 125 knots true, and at about 25 liters per hour fuel burn. And we've also managed to set up the fuel calculation tab, and it's displayed at the PFD at the top right, and it's quite aligned with what the fuel measured points out as well nowadays. And on to the inspection. So the first inspection was at the 25 hours on the airframe. The engine had nearly 40 hours on it by then. So it was basically, you have to strip all the inspection panels, seats, upholstery, everything has to come out so that all the various inspection points can be inspected. There's a big list on the maintenance manual of everything that needs to be inspected, so you have to go by that. In the meantime, I tried to get a few of these quirks addressed. So it takes a lot of time. I would plan for at least a couple of days to, at least one day to undo all the inspection panels, the trim panels, everything from the inside, pretty much all of that. All of the access panels have to come out from the center console, the floor, and all of that for you to inspect all the various points that needs to be inspected. So far, nothing. We didn't find any issues. There was only one on the brake lever. One of the nylock nuts had slightly undone. We couldn't see the change in the creep mark, so that was addressed with a new nut and put in a new creep mark. And the spats had to be taken off to inspect the brakes. The brake fluids is still there. It's holding well. No issues on that front. On the engine and prop side, that's quite a lot of work needs to be done. The blades need to come off and needs to be greased, so that's quite a long process. So that was done. The engine, the oil was changed, the filter replaced, the magnetic plug inspected. There was no issues, no debris found, so all was well in that front. Have to look for any chafing or things like that on the fuel lines, oil lines and cables and all that. All in all, so far everything is looking good. There was no issues found as such. In the brake side, I think I had to clean out quite a lot. It had gathered a lot of dust. We even had one instance of slight brake fade when fully loaded. The brakes were overheated and wasn't really effective, so I'll have to watch out for that in the future. As you see, a lot of screws that come off, and the inspection panels need to be removed. The placards, once the permit was issued, I updated the labels, the warning signs as per the permit that was issued. Talking about the brakes, I think this was so we have a heat shield there to protect the gear from overheating, but one instance we had a bit of overheating and there was a bit of brake fade. So I guess key is to be aware of that. At full weight at higher speeds you might lose a bit of braking if the brakes overheat, so always allow for plenty of runway or try and go on the brakes as late as possible. And there's a lot of paperwork involved with maintaining the aircraft. Obviously, once you have all the paperwork from the CAA when the permit is issued, so you have to keep track of all of that. Plus the LAA have multiple logbooks that you need to be keeping updated. The airframe logbook, where you record all the inspections and things like that. The engine and the propeller logbooks, where any maintenance on the engine or the propeller, for instance, when we had to take the blades off, those have to be recorded. And they also have their own individual logbooks from road tax and airmaster, which needs to be kept up to date as well with any service bulletins and other things. So lots going on, but the flying is the fun part. So